Hi there, it's Ryan. It is February 21st, 3:14 p.m. First things first, tomorrow's my birthday. Happy birthday to me. Second things second, I do not like doing sales or marketing really of any kind. It really makes me uncomfortable, but I should probably do it anyway. So instead of sending you a long email or anything like that, I thought I'd make a loom about why you should come to my course called Metrics and Scorecards for Product Teams. This course starts on Monday, February 26th. So there's just 4 more days to register. Let's walk through really quickly what you are going to get and what this course is all about. So one of the things that I see commonly come up is lots of product managers, designers, researchers, devs, people who are working within a product, working within a team, do want metrics. And what they typically see is a smattering of metrics out there. Perhaps there are already metrics, things being measured inside the company, things that they would like to measure, or things that they're told to measure. But right now, for many product people, we see this smattering. We see this just randomness of metrics. And what we are going to do inside of this is talk about things like this as well, which is we also see dashboards that show us metrics. And within this smattering and within these dashboards, we know that there is meaning to these metrics, but we can't really sort it out. And it's a particular struggle for us when we are making decisions and trying to understand how our work, the actions that we take, are showing up later as impact. What we are going to do in this workshop is kind of this sequential sequence. First, we are going to acknowledge that this is happening and that this is there. So the first thing that we're going to do is just capture what you already know, what metrics already exist, just writing them down to start with. And what we'll find is there are typically metrics that already exist, metrics that have meaning for people. Sometimes you'll hear them being referred to as product metrics or UX metrics or research metrics or DevOps metrics or business metrics. And perhaps we've also heard lagging versus leading, these types of things. And what I would like to do with you is cut through that noise and begin to think that yes, these metrics exist. What does it look like when we just look and observe these metrics and look at how they change over time? And get to this question of, well, really, what are the right metrics for us? What are the right metrics of the things that we're working on? And what we'll begin to discover through our exercise is we're going to do some mapping activities to show that typically most of the metrics that are talked about, worried about, have meaning for people are what we would call impact metrics. They are metrics that we cannot directly influence that show up later. And what we're going to do within this course is discover and show you that there are all sorts of metrics that you, as a member of a product team, can influence. You can create them, you can work with them, you can use it to help you make better decisions. We call these input metrics. And when we begin to start to look at metrics this way, what we discover is that there's actually a cause and effect mechanism, that a lot of what you do on a product team is trying to figure out what are these inputs that are going to show up later to impact. And so we are going to do some mapping exercises. We're going to make some maps early on in this course. Yes, there are exercises. I'm not just showing you visuals, but we actually have structured exercises for where we are going to have you take the metrics that matter to you inside your organization that are already there, and just imagine that these are already puzzle pieces. And we're going to begin to place them on this map by where they show up. Are they impact input? Where do they show up? And how do they connect to our actions? And our goal through all this is to go and make these connections between the outcomes that we want to see to the types of bets that we are making as teams, to the experiments that we want to run, and start to fill in some of these gaps. How can we track these metrics? How can we track these experiments, these outcomes that then lead into the impact metrics that our organizations want to see and that they care about? What we're next going to do is think a little statistically. We're going to introduce you to how to think and use some basic statistical structures to predict better win-win-win scenarios. What do I mean by that? Is that often decisions that we make on product teams actually map to good outcomes later in different areas. So we're going to begin these exercises of how the decisions that we make as designers, as PMs, as devs, as researchers together, how they actually then ladder in and connect to impact metrics later. We'll begin to build out our own maps. You're going to do a map for the work that you're doing, not some fake company. We're going to introduce you to some basic statistical analyses, correlation and linear regression. Don't worry, you don't have to do math, but what these analyses help us do is just look at two sets of variables and use a math formula that works for us to then tell us how closely are they related to each other. And if they are closely related to each other, we can then measure by how much. And when we are able to look at input and impact metrics in this way and run some basic statistical analysis of this, what we begin to get into is a more predictive model. We see that reducing errors has this impact later on for CSAT and revenue. We should do more of that. And so what that gets us into a point for product teams is a better understanding of how our work and how our decisions actually then cascade to different needs for the customer, needs for our team, needs for the product, needs for the company. And what we're lastly going to introduce you to is just the mechanics of scorecards. Scorecards are a language that is understood by our stakeholders, by business executives, by people in the C-suite, that a lot of times how they communicate with each other is through these mechanisms, because it's a short distillation that is essentially encompassing all the action that's happening. And when you begin to learn how to do this, you begin to learn how to create scorecards for, say, the effectiveness of design as a team, or product management as a team, as functional units, and separate that from product effectiveness. Things of looking at desirability and feasibility and viability. And that's where these scorecards mechanisms come in, and they help us communicate why we are taking the next steps with our product. So what we're really trying to help you do is go from, we think we should do this, let's cross our fingers and we hope it shows up this way, to a more mature mapping that is a blend of, yes, visual exercises, but it is a blend of also statistics. And it gets us into more of a place of where we can predict. And yes, here's our Fig Jam. Here's our Fig Jam board that we're going to be using throughout all this. You'll get this. You'll get access to Google Sheets, those things too. Thanks for hanging out with me. This is easier for me than writing an email. I hope it's easy for you to follow along. And if you have questions, reply to me. Add a comment to this Loom video or send me a note. I'll gladly answer them. And I'm going to throw in the URL to register to join us over on Maven. Don't forget, 4 more days. Thanks.